My name is Brock. Just prefer to be Brock, but
Yeah, sorry, I was just reading off the sheet.
yeah, that's fine. Let's pray. God, thank you for today. Lord, it's early, and it's easy for us to be distracted by the events that will be coming today. But I ask that in this time, Lord, you allow our minds to be cleared of the events of the day, to be cleared of the things that would cause us to be distracted from you and from knowing your Son. I ask, Father, for us as people, that you allow us to want to know your Son through what we talk about this morning, through life, and to then in knowing him, to make him known to those around us, and to live like people who know and love him. Bless our time, Father. Allow me to speak clearly, allow what we talk about to be understood and to be then integrated into our lives through your Spirit. Amen. Now, most of you don't know me, so I'll introduce myself just a little bit. My name's Brock, and I've been living here in Algona for about 2.5 years. I'm 34 years old, and so sometime 1.5 decades ago, I was in high school. And in high school, there was one particular thing that I loved: sports. Any sport. It really didn't matter, except for running track. That made no sense to me. So I apologize to those of you who like to run straight lines or run and turn left. It doesn't make sense to me. But I had enjoyed just about any other sport. I was pretty good at sports too, which will come into play as we talk about this, because there's one thing that happens when you're good at something, and that is that it becomes really, really easy for that to become really important to you. So I was a basketball and baseball player, is pretty much what I did. I started on our varsity baseball team for four years, and I scored over 1,000 points of basketball. So I was good enough. I wasn't fantastic, certainly wasn't bad. And what I found was my life was completely oriented around being as good as I could be at sports, which you could argue maybe isn't so bad. There are worse things maybe to be oriented around, but there are certainly also better things to be oriented around. But that's not even the point for this morning. I remember going skiing one time, snow skiing out in Colorado with some friends while I was in seminary, and we decided to go places we'd never gone before. And has anybody here ever skied out in Cobbler Mountain?
Oh, no.
Okay, wow. You've skied in the mountains though?
Yeah.
Okay, the mountains are really high, right? Well, at Cobbler at least, there's some places called the bowls. And the bowls, well, they're called bowls because it looks like God just took a giant bowl and scooped part of the mountain out. You're above the tree line, and it's just this big giant cavern that you ski, and everything funnels down to one particular part. Now at the top of it you get snow cornices, which is where the snow blows over the top, and it creates like a giant drift hanging out over the slope that you would go down. Now the slope that you would go down is a double black diamond, so that means you're probably dropping 5 feet for every 2 feet you go out, something like that. It's really, really steep and terrifying. Fun, but terrifying. And I remember we decided we were going to jump off the cornice and hit the slopes going down. And one of my friends made a comment to me. He said, if we do this, as soon as you start going, because I'd never done it before, he said, as soon as you go, just totally commit to going, because if you don't, then you will land wrong, and I don't know how far you'll go down before you stop. And so we jumped off the cornice, and nobody died, which was good. I mean, that was the goal, right? But the thing that in all of that makes maybe the most sense to us is that you've got to fully commit to something. And it's really easy for us to not. I mean, while skiing, I get that, right? While playing sports, typically I get that. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to commit to doing it and to accomplishing it. But on that cornice, if I got to the end and decided, boy, I really don't know if I should do this, then I was going to get hurt. And we had to decide to just fully commit at that moment to jump off and start skiing down. Because the reality was we only dropped about 20 feet, but you're hitting such a steep slope when you land that, well, it feels like about 100 feet at that point. but you don't even land hard. You just land and you go. But if you land and you start going and you lose control, you're going to run into one of the rocks on the course. And so you had to commit and you had to go. But we don't do that very well when we're not skiing or playing sports or driving our car. When it comes to things that actually matter more, typically we commit very, very little. And we hope that if we only commit a little bit, maybe we won't get hurt so much. Maybe we can back out whenever it feels uncomfortable to back out. But what we don't hold true is that trying to back out at those points, it'll ruin you. We're going to read this passage out of 1 John chapter 2. And it says this: do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the desires of the flesh, the desires of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not from the Father, but from the world. And the world is passing away, along with its desires, but whoever does the will of God abides forever. Now think about that for a moment. How much opportunity are you given in that passage to go halfway in to following Christ? And I'm not talking about following God, because we can talk about following God as some sort of everybody's in the same boat sort of way, but this is writing to those who follow Jesus, okay? How much opportunity are you given to half follow Jesus and half not? If you half follow Jesus and half not, it's like saying, I'm going to half love Jesus and half love the world. I'm going to half love Jesus and half follow the world, which sounds initially like maybe it's something that we can do, though you've probably been told that you can't. But let's look at this passage again. It says, do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. Now, what does it mean to love the world? Because if I'm going to stand here and tell you that you're not allowed to love the world, okay, there are lots of different ways that we can take that. People talk about the world being the people in the world, and if I tell you you're not supposed to love the people in the world, then we would be directly defying other parts of Scripture that tell us to love people. Now, in loving those people, it doesn't mean that we approve of those people or approve of what they're doing, but it does mean that we love them and care enough about them to share with them that they need something more. That would include your friends. That would include every person you know. You're called to love them enough to not watch them walk down a path that leads to destruction, but rather call them to a path that leads to life. But that's not even the point. This says, for you, as you're loving the world or not loving the world, this is going to be talking about something other than the people in the world. Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, and here he's going to explain then what it is in the world that you and I are called to not love. The desires of the flesh, the desires of the eyes, and the pride of life. All three of those things that the world entices us toward are directly defiant to God, directly defiant to following Jesus. The desires of the flesh. What would those be? That would be gratifying yourself with anything that you can get. That could be anything from whatever those things are called. I used to know. Butter braids. That could be anything from enjoying copious amounts of butter braids in life to sexual activity. It really doesn't matter what it is. It can be about becoming so incredibly fit and athletic and strong that you've oriented your life around being and doing these things. It could be the talent of being able to play music. It could be the talent of being able to stand up in front of people and make them all laugh at your jokes. It could be absolutely anything that makes you feel good in this world. And what John is writing here is orienting your life around that in any level is hatred toward God. And we miss that usually. Because we usually think, okay, it's okay if I go after a little bit of that, but I just can't go after all of that. But really what John is saying, that one of the things in this world is the desire of your flesh. The things that you want to grab and hold and consume and get for you. Trying to do that is directly in opposition to your following Jesus. Now, beyond that, he now says the desires of the eyes. So not just the things that you have and you can hold on to, but the things that you look at somebody else and you say, well, why didn't I get that? They're faster than me. They're better looking than me. They're more talented than me. People like them more than me. They've got more money than me. They've got whatever. When you can see something in somebody else that makes you say, I want that, and it's not Jesus, then it's something of this world. And wanting that, desiring after what somebody else has, automatically puts you in a place where you're saying to God effectively this: I know you gave me what you gave me because you wanted to give it to me, but I think you're dumb. Because I think I have a better idea of what I should have and what I want. And what I want is what they have. And the funny thing is, there's not a person in the world who doesn't look around at those around them and wish they had what they had. There's not a person in the world who is content by themselves in what they've got. Doesn't matter how much money you've got. Doesn't matter how many friends you've got. It doesn't matter how good you are at athletics. Everybody looks at other people and they say, wow, I wish I had what they had. But that trying to satisfy the desires of your eyes and what you see around you says what? Says that you don't love God. You don't love Jesus. You cannot be following Him if your passions and what you want to consume for yourself are anything other than Him, are the things of this world. If your passions and what you see and what you want to get that others have is anything other than seeing Jesus in them. And then, so it's not just wanting to consume things that you could get. It's not just wanting to get what others have. It's also in the pride of life. And this is the hardest for me. Because one of the greatest problems I've had in my life, and this is going to sound egotistical, but it's just true, I succeed at almost everything I've ever tried. That sounds great, right? Somebody who says, man, I've succeeded at everything I've ever tried to do. That's horrible. It really is. It's not horrible in the same sense that somebody would say, man, it's horrible that I fail at everything that I do. But what happens is deep inside of me, I have convinced myself that I am good enough to get it done on my own. And I am so incredibly, inherently prideful in who I am and what I can do that it's almost inexplicable to people. Because I just assume, if we're going to play a game, I'm going to beat you. If we're going to have a race, or we're going to accomplish something, I'm going to win. If we're going to have a debate, I'm going to beat you. Everything that we do, I assume I'm going to win at, and more often than not, I'm right. And what I then learn deep inside of me, and that part of me that hasn't been molded and shaped by Jesus yet, what I learn is that I can do it on my own. And every moment that I think that I can do it on my own, I'm saying to God, I don't really care to follow you. I'd rather just do it on my own. I don't really need you. I'm good enough, I'm strong enough, I'm smart enough, I am capable enough to accomplish whatever it is without you. So, how about I just accomplish it on my own? And what John writes here is that if you have the desires of your flesh, if you seek to gain the desires of your flesh, if you seek to gain the desires of your eyes, or if you seek to follow this pride that comes in life, you do not follow Jesus. And so what you need to do is you need to do the hardest thing that I've ever had to do. You need to evaluate your own life and ask yourself one simple question. Do I follow my desires of my flesh? Do I follow my desires of my eyes? Do I follow my pride in life? Or do I follow Jesus? And if you don't follow Jesus, then let me tell you, the only loving thing that I can tell you is change. Start deciding to follow him. Maybe even you don't have the strength to start deciding to follow him. Maybe all you've got the strength for is to just bow before him and say, Jesus, I can't even want to follow you on my own. Please make that change in me, so that as you make that change in me, it can be shown in my wanting more to follow you. Maybe that's what you're called to do. Maybe that's what you're expected of. We're going to read one other passage, and then we'll be done. And that's this. It's Matthew chapter 13, verses 44 to 46. And it's Jesus speaking. He's talking about the kingdom of heaven. And I want you to imagine just the magnitude of what he's saying. The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field, which a man found and covered up. Then, in his joy, he goes and sells all that he has to buy the field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant searching for fine pearls, who on finding one pearl of great value went and sold all that he had and bought that pearl. That's the kind of level that you're called to follow Jesus with. And if you didn't catch what exactly it was that there is something out there, a treasure in a field or a pearl that this guy found that was so incredibly valuable that he sold everything he owned. Every bit of everything he owned, so he could buy the treasure, so he could buy the pearl. Now, what did he have when he was done? He had nothing but the pearl. Nothing but the treasure. It's not like he got the treasure and then sold the treasure to have stuff again. He got the treasure so he could have the treasure. He didn't buy the pearl so he could sell it and become rich. He bought the pearl so he could have the pearl. Because the pearl, being the kingdom of heaven, is so incredibly valuable that it's worth every bit of everything you've got. Which is why John writes, if you search after the desires of your flesh, or the desires of your eyes, or the pride in life, you cannot be following Jesus, because he's more valuable than what you can see and get. He's more valuable than what you can consume. He's more valuable than what you can ever hope to dream about yourself. And if you don't see him as that valuable, then you need to reevaluate whether you see him as valuable at all. Let's pray. God, thank you for today. Thank you for this group. Thank you for the opportunity that we had to be here and to talk about you and your son. And God, I ask for this group on their behalf that you use your Spirit in them today to challenge who they are, to challenge their thoughts, and to challenge what they are motivated by. Use your Spirit to show them how they can follow you more. God, if any of them don't have this desire for you, or consumed by the things of this world, show that to them. Make it plain to them so that they can follow you. We love you. In your name we pray. Amen.